I'd support looking at any business incentive program. I think it's a shame that our council, at least the meetings, the majority of the meetings that I've gone to in the last 2 years, have not discussed any pro-job or pro-growth or economic program for the city in the last 2 years. It has not been on the agenda of this current city council, and it is not their priority. And it's unfortunate to hear people talk about, particularly people who have been on the council for a long time, talk about what exactly they will do in the future. And I think really they should be judged by what they've done in the past. And what they've done in the past is not get to work for the businesses in the city. You know, we can't continue the message of we're going to tax you and we're going to make it more difficult for you at every single turn, and then say that we support businesses in town. Our downtown needs to be cleaned up. We need to provide incentives for businesses to be here yesterday. We need to have done these things years ago. We need to be looking at these options and discussing these options way before this point in time. And the unfortunate fact is that we haven't. We need to get on the ball because we are losing business to our surrounding communities that are welcoming them with open arms. Oroville and Corning are taking our businesses because they are offering the incentives that we have.
Yes, yes, yes. And the reason is jobs, jobs, jobs. Now, Andrew, I respectfully disagree. I'm not sure which city you've been paying attention to, but there has been a tremendous amount of economic activity in this community, subsidized and unsubsidized, for decades. One of those funding mechanisms was RDA, but my business alone brought in 75 full-time equivalent annualized jobs this year alone, using a subsidy of a $3.5 million loan from the city of Chico, from the redevelopment agency. I brought in $4 million in federal tax credits and $12 million of economic activity. That's just me alone, and I'm running for council. There are hundreds of other people and other businesses that have been doing this in this community. The business that we're in right now is one of those. This is an entrepreneurial spirit, and while they're not in subsidized spaces, this is something that the city routinely does. The Catalyst Shelter is in subsidized housing and has been for decades. We do this over and over and over again, and it helps with jobs, and it helps with business. And it doesn't have to be an innovative business, a brand new business. 80% of the new jobs that are started come from existing businesses and not brand new startups. But no question that there's a place for new businesses to receive those subsidies, but it is something that the city does and will continue to do, and I would support it.
Some new business creation.
Okay, I totally agree with Ann said as far as using city properties that are vacant, unused. I know that one of the sites that is a Chico Unified site has been used by Chico High the last few years, the Henshaw property, where FFA has set up a farm for the kids to go out and work on. Again, the community gardens that Beck just started on a spot that Chico, or the city of Chico owns. As far as privately owned buildings, that's a really tough one. As the city of Chico should do everything it possibly can to encourage people, rather than building new buildings, to use those existing buildings that have been sitting vacant for some time. Locating there, whether they're giving some type of breaks as far as business licenses, rather than having them sitting there vacant and being an eyesore to the community. You know, as far as using them for social services, that's another really tough one. Those are, you know, those really idealistic things, but it takes money to get those types of things going. And whether some of the churches, other nonprofits I would encourage giving them the rent at a lower reduced rate to get those programs off the ground, because I think it's something sorely needed in this community. But we can't totally subsidize the rent because they are privately owned buildings.
I think this is an easy one. This is what we have right now is, we're not talking about city-owned property, we're talking about privately owned businesses that have empty spaces out there. As for the last 12 years, I've been a real estate agent and leasing buildings out and things like that. What's going to start it is at the planning commission, not the planning commission, but the planning department, and those fees and regulations. Those things will get built, and private business will do that. It's like low-income housing. There's things already in the housing element. If you wanted to build 200 homes, so many of those, a certain amount of those homes have to be low income. We had the redevelopment money, and that a lot of that, I think it was 20% of the money had to go to low income housing. But on those commercial businesses, if we reduce the amount of fees or put them off for a certain amount of time, what will happen is those people that are entrepreneurs like myself, like Andrew, that have started businesses. I've been in business 35 years and hired thousands of people. I'm one of them that still exists today. Is I started the recycling program here in the city of Chico, the curbside recycling program, which is 20 years later still working just fine. But I hear these the business owners that own these buildings. If we just ask them to cut a little bit of the rent for a little while and give that person that wants to start a new business, if it's a public-private partnership that goes together. If the city comes in and reduces some of the wages and we can get some of the owners of those businesses to reduce a little bit, everybody wins, because then there's the sale tax and jobs, and then people start spending more money.
Yeah, as far as incentivizing businesses, I would agree that incentives need to happen. You know, I'm all for incentivizing businesses. The mechanism of those incentives, I believe, is the question for me. I would be in favor of reducing, fees temporarily, waiving environmental impact fees, property taxes for a year, that type of thing. I am against taking tax dollars from people that pay taxes and giving that to somebody in the form of a rent subsidy, especially for private development. I think that should be between the landlord. I mean, if I owned a commercial building and I had some people that wanted to rent and start a new business, I would want to see them succeed, obviously, because I would want to rent them the building. So by giving them a break privately, I would be helping. I don't think it's right to take tax dollars that could be used for myriads of other things, core services, police and fire, and that type of thing, and use that. I think there's a fundamental disconnect between people that think taking tax dollars and using that to create jobs is actually creating jobs. It's simply not. It's redistribution of wealth. Creating jobs is building a business from the ground up, hiring people, and doing all this privately. Whether you get loans that are repaid, that's great, but taking tax dollars to do that is the exact wrong message to send. We want to encourage business growth. We want to encourage business to grow that are fundamentally healthy. Starting them off at a disadvantage, so to speak, by not allowing them to make their own way, I think is a problem. I think that's a big problem with the country and the state and the city. So I would be against rent subsidy programs, but I would be for incentivizing business growth by reducing fees.
The short answer to the longest question is yes. I don't want to speculate on how these agreements are going to come about or be put together, but we would want to take a look at them and make sure they're fair to the people who are leasing and renting, and fair to the owners. In my travels about town, a segment of town that's interested in having more space available are the artists in the artist community, because they need low rent, because they have a business model that puts a lot of effort, a lot of work into a particular piece of art. And if we could centralize them into an area and make it more of a destination, I think that would be fabulous.
When I'm elected to council, I will continue my protection of the Green Line. It's such a valuable resource for protecting our agricultural, viable land and the inherent industry that it brings into the city of Chico. I will also uphold the Gold Line, no development in the foothills, to protect our view shed and to protect our recharge zones for the Tuscan Aquifer. I will also continue to be open, consider all viewpoints, be accessible to my constituents, which I've proven that I have been in the last 8 years that I've been a city council member.
I like the answer. Ready, everyone? Yes, I would support subsidies for budding entrepreneurs or community groups. I think that the way to do that would be to make sure that it continues to pay forward. So as those businesses become successful, they are then the ones that are they're assisting with new businesses coming in. They're subsidizing other startups, either through use of space or use of equipment or expertise that they possess. But the other thing that I would look at with empty space that we're not currently utilizing is let's utilize that space for social service programs that we so desperately need in the city. not all of the programs that we do are going to have a dollar return, but we are going to see a benefit from them. So just because we might not be generating thousands of dollars by using the space for social services, the money that we save by providing those services is worthwhile to the city.
Okay, again, and I think I heard from everybody at the table, I'm all for business incentives. Absolutely, it's what's going to create growth, it's going to increase the size of the pie, it's going to let us offer our services. The question is, do I support using taxpayer dollars to subsidize property owners to lower rents to entrepreneurs? The answer is no. Google, Apple, and Build.com didn't need taxpayer subsidies to launch. I'm on the board of mentors for the Chico State Center for Entrepreneurship. The university is already partnering with local business owners to allow these budding entrepreneurs to get started. They're partnering with people like Bill, they're partnering with other companies to help this happen. It's not up for the city to do that. 90% of the time, professional venture capitalists lose money. Do we expect amateurs in city government to do better? It's not up to the government to choose. It's up to the government to let free enterprise flourish.
If I can follow up on that, you're actually wrong about Google.
Is that what we're going to do?
What's that?
Is that what we're going to
No,
do?
we're not gonna do that. Let's not do that.
Excuse me.
I mean, if we're gonna do it, then we have to go back to like, you made a statement about
I-
Andrew,
yeah.
you made a statement about Kimberly or Dave earlier, so let's just